La 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 la. German Masala, sit back and listen to German Masala. Sit back and listen to German Masala.
Welcome everyone to the next episode of German Masala podcast. This is your host Herbir.
And I'm your other host, Alex.
We do this podcast on bi-weekly basis, and one of us chooses the topic. The other one does not know what the topic is going to be. Last time it was Alex's turn. He chose the topic growing up in India because I grew up in India, and we talked about it. Really interesting topic.
Yes, I agree. That was fun.
And we talked about the schooling system and how the schooling system in India is different to, let's say, here in Germany, because both of us live here, and to the US because Alex went to school over there. But what we did not get to was the university, how the university system over here works in Germany. It's quite a unique system. So I thought, okay, why not talk about the universities over here in Germany?
All right. So this is like a part two, basically, or like a little bit of a follow-up, but also like a topic in and at itself. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this with you today. Cool.
Awesome. So, Alex, I was just thinking, let us talk about your university experience, and then we can talk about how generally universities work over here. I know your university experience was a little bit unique to how generally the universities work over here,
Yes.
but that'll give, I think, people a good impression of the universities here in Germany, right?
All right, yeah, and I mean, I from my family, my sister is doing like I would say more regular thing on how you would attend university in general in Germany. So I think I can speak a little bit to it. But yes, you're right. So I guess I'll give a brief overview of what I did. So after I got done with my German high school diploma, which I was told by some listeners that it might have been a little bit confusing last time that I used the word gymnasium so much, and I should have just said high school. Just to recap, in Germany, there's a bunch of different school options after you attend basically elementary school. There's no middle school, which you can then attend. And the highest form of that is the gymnasium in German words, but it's basically your high school, which is supposed to set you up for university or for a bachelor's degree in some way or form. And that's basically what I did. However, when I was approaching the end of my high school time, I thought to myself, well, how, as hopefully or probably a lot of people do, like, what's the next step? Like, what's happening? And honestly, I didn't really have a clear path. I knew that I was going to do something, and at some point, I thought I was going to do Wirtschaftsingenieurwesen, which is like economy engineer, like economy. I don't even know. It's a hard word to translate.
It is. I don't think other countries have this degree, to be honest, right?
Yeah, it's a special one, which is basically like combining engineering. Well, not like engineering, but kind of engineering with economy, and you're like an economy engineer, and you could have worked at like a logistics company or something like that. But I attended multiple like not really conventions, but like fairs, like job fairs, basically, or like which are supposed to help people that are in a current situation or a situation that I'm currently in, looking for something, to find what they're looking for,
Yeah.
or to find a job, or again, a university. And at one of these, I was lucky enough to talk to someone from IBM, actually. And IBM had this unique it's like a dual study program, which is in Germany actually not that uncommon, but it's still a small percentage of the population that generally does this type of like bachelor's degree or further degree after your high school. And how this works is that in my particular case, I attended the Berlin School of Economics and Law, while simultaneously being employed at IBM. Like, I had a legit work contract and they paid me. And what was great is that you were at work or doing practical working things for 3 months out of at a given time. And then the next 3 months, you're at Berlin School of Economics and Law doing all your studies. And then, in the end of these 3 months, you were just done and you wrote all of your exams for those 3 months, and then you went back to work, and then you went back to school. And I think that was, at least for me, that was really great to have this. Obviously, it condenses your university experience, right? A lot of people go to college not only because they like to get a degree and a job at some point, but also because they enjoy, the college life and stuff like this. And that's obviously a little bit cut down because you are at your school only half the time, right? Which is super interesting. And it also means that you have less time to study, obviously, and it condenses basically a 3-year bachelor's program into 1.5 years of actual time you're spending. So my days, I have a lot of friends in the US, or I don't know if I would consider it a lot, but I have friends in the US, and I know how their schedules looked like. And it was like, oh yeah, so today I have like 2 hours of class and that's it, right? This is not how my days looked like. Like some days I had like, courses from 8 a.m. until like 6 p.m. or something. I mean, not always, but it would happen. And people would be like, well, this is crazy, but this is why the program was so condensed. So that's basically what my university experience looked like. It was a condensed bachelor's degree while simultaneously working. And the thing that I really love is that you get the practical experience and you get to talk about it in class and share that experience with others who also have this practical experience. And yeah, I mean, I was fortunate that I could do this program, that my grades allowed me to do so, that my everything allowed me to do so. Yeah.
Was it difficult to get in?
I got in, so I can't really speak to as if it's super difficult. The way this worked is that the selection process was basically through the employer. So at that time, IBM. And honestly, their program was exceptionally well set up because they were doing this for years already. This is how they chose a lot of their, or not chose, but I guess like educated a lot of their future potential. Because obviously, like the employer paid you at that time, so they hope that you start to work there, but there was no guarantee that you would get a job, and other way around, you didn't have to work there afterwards. So I think that was a good system, but I did end up working there. Just for whoever's interested, after I got done with my bachelor's degree, I did end up working there for some time. But so we had a 3-stage selection process. I think it was twice online and then an assessment center. So the first thing was you would just apply online. You would upload your general stuff. You would, I don't know, like you would answer a couple of basic questions. And there was in Germany, it's called like NC, like a numerous, I think it's numerus clausus or something.
Numerus clausus.
Yeah.
I think that's Latin, right? So
oh, that's probably Latin. Yeah, you're right. So it basically, there was a requirement in you couldn't have a worse, in the US it's GPA, right? Like a worse grade, whatever, average. And in Germany, our grade system works a little bit differently in high school, but whatever. There was still like a minimum requirement you have to meet for different basically study paths, because there were obviously also different courses you could take. I studied international business administration, but you could study like informatics, something like that. There were different requirements. And then interestingly enough, they also looked at certain subjects in school, how you did there. So I think it was like math, German, and English, how you did there. And after that, if they, I guess, approved you on that, you went on to a second online stage where you'd have to answer a lot more questions in detail. You'd have to write up certain parts, not really essays, but certain minor text boxes, I would say. And if you pass that, they would invite you, in my case, to Berlin, to a day assessment center. And that thing, let me tell you, it was fun. It was my first ever experience doing something like this. But it was also exhausting. But it wasn't exhausting while I was doing this, but I really felt it after I was done. Like after that day, I remember that I took a train back to Hamburg, and the next 2 days or something, I was super sick. I was just because, and I know this from myself, like I was so hyped up for this. I was so tense, and I wanted to do well, obviously. And and the best thing was, or at least that I thought was really cool, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It was kind of like Germany's Next Top Model. They like had you in a. It's funny, but they had you in a room, and they basically said like, yeah, you have the job or you don't have the, or you like we would like to have you or we wouldn't like to have you. And I think this is fair because people. I know this from just some close by family and friends right now who are looking for jobs or who are just out of university and looking for jobs. And you, I think, know this too. I think what's really hard is for people that like uncertainty, right? If you apply for a job, or if you apply for university or something, and you don't know, or you never hear back, like this happened to me. And it's just weird because you don't know. And I really appreciated that at that time you had a clear answer. But I talked for a long time now, so that's my experience.
That's really interesting. I did an assessment center as well after finishing my master's. I wanted to start working for a consulting company, and they basically had an assessment center as well. And I had to go to Munich for that. And I went there. I was very excited as well. And it was like the whole day, again, similar to your experience, I think. And they were like, you had to do business cases together with other people, and they looked at different things you were doing. They were sort of analyzing whatever you were doing, whatever you were saying. So it was taxing, right? And then, but the great thing was at the end of the day, again, they told us that we either had offers or we did not have an offer, right? So I was lucky enough to get the offer. So I was really happy, but I felt the same way. Like the next couple of days, I didn't do anything. I was just like, okay, I'm happy now. And, I've got the job, but it was tiring. But coming back to the selection process, Alex, for you. So these interviews, were these taken by the college, by the university, or was it IBM that was doing?
No, it was actually IBM. So as far as I understood, they were, or I'm pretty sure I knew this, they were working really closely with the university. So it's basically a program that they set up together, which I think is super cool with, other companies. And one of them was IBM. I'd also in my... it was actually more like a school class. I wouldn't consider it the typical like college experience where you have like 400 people in a course or something. It was a really like small group of people, which is nice because I like to actually work with people and know them. And this group of people, they were from not only IBM, but different companies. Bayer was there too. I think Pfizer was there. And then we had some smaller ones. I think one of the... my colleagues was from like Blume 2000, which is like a flower shop. And I think Deutsche Bahn also had some. It was just really interesting. Like it was a great mix of people, and they were all doing this obviously in the same way because otherwise it wouldn't work. But yeah, I mean they really did all the selection, and I think the only thing the school really needed was your like high school diploma to know that everything was okay. And I want to say the other stuff with your grade average and stuff was through that online application process. Yeah.
So each of the companies were selecting their own candidates and then sending them to the college that you were going to, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very interesting. But again, this is not the normal experience one would have in Germany when you go to the university, right?
Not the default one, yeah.
not the default one. I know. I actually love this idea. So when I was in the university, I went to university here in Germany as well. I did my bachelor's and master's at University of Hamburg, and I went to the normal, like the default German university, University of Hamburg. And while I was studying, I think the great thing about when you study in Germany, like the very first one, is that you don't pay any tuition. Back then, we used to pay like 500 euros per month, and then there were some other costs of 300 euros approximately. And that was just introduced, I think, in 2008 or something. And people were really, really mad about this. People were saying, oh, this is so, how can the education cost money? This should be free of cost. And I, as a foreign student, I was like, wow, I only have to pay 500 euros because.
Wait, you had to pay 500 euros a month?
No, per semester. Sorry.
Oh, per semester. Oh, that's not too bad. All right.
That's not too bad, and that's what I'm saying. And especially as a foreign student, you are treated same as anyone, like as you, Alex, would be treated here in Germany as a local student, right? And this is not normal if you consider universities in England or the US. In England, I would have had to pay like 3 times what the local students were paying, and it would have been like 20,000 euros or pounds or whatever, right?
Yes.
I was like, wow.
That is crazy. In the US, it's actually crazy. They even have in-state tuition and out-of-state tuition. So if you don't live in that state, you might have to pay more tuition. So let's say you live in whatever, Colorado, and then you go to North Carolina to NC State University, because a bunch of my friends went there. If you're out of state, that means you don't live in North Carolina. You may have to pay more for your just attending the school, and not even saying that me as a foreign student might have to pay more as well. Like I don't know the exact rates there, but definitely definitely interesting.
Interesting. Well, I mean, that was one of the most important things that made me realize that I want to study in Germany, right? So I was thinking, okay, I don't have to pay that much money, and the level of education, standard of education I'll be getting is really, really good, especially if you want to go into engineering and all those kind of technical areas. And the only thing was my bachelor's degree was in German, so I had to learn the language first, and then but that was fun times. I think learning German was one of the best experiences I've had in my life. Like that time, those 8 months when I went to the school to learn German was a really, really fun time.
But wasn't it hard? Wasn't it like super, like I can only imagine, like German has so many, even like just pronouns for words, or was it like, are these like in English it's just the, and then in Germany we have der, die, das, and all the other things, so it's crazy.
So it's just my opinion. I think it's an easy language to learn, to be honest.
That's the first time I heard this. All right. Why? I'm interested.
So I think it's very structured. There are rules for everything. And yeah, I mean, that's the great thing about it. I know you're laughing because of the stereotype that Germans have rules for everything, right?
But it's true. It's true.
And that's the thing. So if I had to teach someone my own language, my mother tongue Punjabi, I would never be able to, because the grammar is not, it does not have that kind of strict rules as German has, right? So I think that's what made the whole thing very easy for me, because then the language school I went to was great. It was a private language school. So I used to go there for 4 hours a day, and then I used to come home and then do homework, and then teachers there were great. The first couple of months, people kept talking to me in English, and I was, obviously I was replying to them in English, and I didn't speak a lot of German. But then my teacher told me I have to stop speaking in English, otherwise I would never learn.
But that's the issue, right? Because in Germany, if you come to, in general, everybody speaks English because it's part of at least kids nowadays, because everyone has to learn English in school. And you always think like, oh, I could just speak English if you're not a native speaker, right?
Exactly. That's the thing. And people actually want to talk to you in English because they want to improve their language skills as well.
And sometimes I will be completely honest with you, even at our job now where we work, sometimes it's actually easier just to get things done. And I don't want to sound misdemeaning. I actually love helping people. I love also if people have questions, like I don't mind answering them for them. But sometimes, especially if you're in a business setting or even a university setting and you want to have a group work and you want to explain something and want to have something done, sometimes it's just easier. But it's the easy way out. And that shouldn't be always the right way to do it. And I think we should right here actually encourage people to if you're a non-native speaker, it doesn't matter if you're, coming to the US, for example, because that was my case. I mean, I knew English, but still. And there was nobody speaking German, or not a lot of people, some. And I had to speak English. And that's what really helped me learn the language better and learn a lot of slang words and, some other stuff. But I think everybody should be encouraged. I have a lot of friends, and I don't think anybody would say anything if someone would say like, "Hey, I want to improve my German. Can we have our conversations in German?" As long as, and that's also what I think is important, you put in an effort to learn, like you did, like you went to school to learn German, and there's a bunch of offerings, because sometimes I feel like people just expect this to happen naturally. You have to put in effort, right?
Exactly, you have to. So I was in a similar situation where I had to learn German because my bachelor's was going to be in German, right? So I mean, after those 2 months, I stopped talking to people in English. I would only reply in German when people would talk to me, and I enjoyed actually talking to people a lot. I will after my language school was over, I would just go to the lake and sit over there, do my homework, talk to people, ask them for a little bit of help. I made friends. I had really nice experiences. I learned the language. It was great. But coming back to the university, after that, I started my bachelor. It was in business informatics, so there was a little bit business in it, more informatic, like I think it was 70-30. Started that, and then the second great thing I want to say about the German education system, or actually the German system generally, is I think when you are studying, you can start working as a part-time student, and you don't have to work for, let's say, restaurants like McDonald's or Burger King. Over here, you can actually start working for proper companies. They treat you as a normal part of the company. You just work less than the people who work there full time. So I started working for an IT company for like 20 hours a week. And that gave me so much of like practical experience that is still helping me. I think this is the other great thing about studying over here in Germany.
Agreed. I'm not entirely sure how this would be in the US, because I know that a lot of my friends did something in the food industry in general. Wasn't always fast food, right? One of my good friends, he was a server or busboy at first, but then a server. I want to say he was a server during university the entire time, and then just worked over the summer actually. But during the school year didn't work, right? So if you make enough money during the summer, and obviously have parents that help you out. What I want to clarify though, real quick, for everyone who is a non-German knowledgeable whatever person. I mean, this is what we're doing this podcast for also. In Germany, that doesn't mean we don't have private schools, right? So, and this, by the way, doesn't mean that in the US there's only like really, really, really expensive schools. There are community colleges which provide a great education as well. Obviously, they have a little. Sometimes I feel like they get a bad rep, but for certain what is it called? Like for certain paths of study, they might really be the best option there is, especially if you don't have the money. So in Germany. Most students would attend public universities or public schools after they do their high school time. And these are in general free. However, there are so-called Semesterbeiträge, right? You talked about the 500 euros a month or something. A semester. For example, mine, even though I did work for a company and everything, for my school, I still had to pay exactly the same. However, I want to ask you if this is the same for you. Usually in this fee, something is included. Like, for example, for me, I was, obviously going to school in Berlin. It was a semester ticket was included that granted you access to all public transport in Berlin.
Yeah. So let me clarify something. So 500 euros I was talking about, that was the tuition fees that was introduced, I think, around 2007 or 2008.
That was extra.
Yeah. But then they got rid of it again, I think, in 2012 because everyone was complaining.
Okay.
And then on top of that, there were like 250 to 300. I can't remember, maybe 300 euros for what you said, just like semester by
Okay,
time.
sorry.
Like,
Then I was totally caught off guard. So yeah, because I didn't really have this experience with actually a tuition fee. Although I want to say like 500 euros a semester is still pretty low, right?
it is quite low, yes, especially considering the standard of education that there is in the universities over here. I think it's not much. But again, I mean, who am I to judge, especially as a foreign student? I used to be, I could understand why my German classmates were complaining because they were not used to the system. Their parents did not pay anything. Their siblings who were older than them did not pay anything. And suddenly they had to pay. So I could understand their point of view as well, right?
Oh, totally. I would be probably mad as well if this would happen to me. But a lot of things change. School, like the high school, went from 12 to 13 years. We talked about this last time in some states, and it's up to the states now. Then after. When was this? Okay, so back in the days, after you were done with school, you would have to do so-called Wehrpflicht. So you'd have to enlist in the is it like the
Army?
German army? Yeah, probably, right? In the Bundeswehr. It's like I don't want to say it's probably the army. Or you could do 1 year of social service, if I remember correctly. So you could do like help, out in an elderly, like a senior a residence for seniors or something like that. So that was also changed to now it's voluntarily, and you don't have to do this anymore. So you can go straight to university and go study and stuff like this. But a couple of my friends still had to do that. So, things always change. But I think, and this is what I would really like to point out here, we talked in probably all episodes so far about education in some way, form, or another, right? Like education is important to make sure that people are aware of things that are going on, of sometimes lies that are being told, of creating their own judgment of news, media, all of that. And I think education is the main source of solving a lot of issues going on in this world. And it enables countries and even individuals. You talked about how this is with your family. Like in India, people really, like parents will sacrifice all of their wealth and income to put their kids through school, basically to make something out of them. And I think this is so cool that in Germany it is I think generally agreed upon that this should be something that is provided for almost free, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, compared to something in the US where I heard from like tuitions that range like well north of $15,000, right? And then this is obviously not for the entire study, it's only for part of it. So then you have to repeat this. And so, yes, I really love this. And I think this is a system that helps and foster a society that is growing, right? Because it's not only about stagnating, but it's also about helping a society grow and advance. For example, with racial issues that are arising, right? It's way easier to address something like this if you provide education to more people because it's free, right?
Exactly. The best thing for me was that even when I was a foreign student, I was treated the same as the German student. This is why I'm so surprised when I see that there are so little number of people coming to Germany to study over here. It's maybe one factor is the language, right? So people think, okay, I will have to learn the language and I don't know how I will be able to, fit into the society. I don't think that it's that difficult.
But the thing is, though, and I think this is what you implicitly also said, you still have to learn the language, right? It's not like, and I'm actually a big proponent of if you live in a country for a certain extent of time, like let's say you're only here for 2 or 3 months, you're either working or doing something else. I don't really care if you learn the language too good or not. I mean, it's cool if you learn it, but if you don't, oh well, whatever. And if you're here for vacation, I don't mind talking to you in English on anything. But I think as a general member of society, if you're trying to live, or if you are planning on living in a country for a longer time, I think it's so important to learn that language, right? And I want to say by the way, because we only talk about this podcast is in English, your German is great. Like, it is, no, seriously, like your German
Thank you,
is
Alex.
no, it's perfect, and it's even better than some of us because our grammar just at some point went downhill. But in general, I want to say I think more people should come here to study. Germany needs talent. Germany needs smart people being educated. Engineering is such an important part. We have great engineering schools, and I want to encourage more girls or women to consider this path as well. I think this is great, or even informatics, computer degrees. But I think Germany is still kind of known for their engineering part, right?
Yeah, definitely, yes.
And I think if anyone listened to this just a couple of days ago, last week on Wednesday, I think, Tesla's Q2 earnings call was taking place, and Elon Musk said, we at Tesla love engineering. Like, if you consider engineering, like, come work with us. And I think this is so cool because a lot of time, especially in these times where obviously we work for a big tech company, like everybody's like, oh, it's software. And even in my personal life, I'm like, oh yeah, software, like everything needs to, but it's also engineering that goes into so many things. So electrical and, then the actual hardware and stuff like this. So, So yeah, I mean, what you said, like, please, like, it's really cheap-ish to study here. Obviously, you still need a place to live, and you still need to buy food and everything. But if you're willing to learn the language, put in a little bit of effort, and become I want to say, like, contributing member of society, right? And come here. We have good schools apparently because this is what you did, right? What made you
Definitely.
So you said you chose Germany because of it's kind of cheap to study here, but what also made you come here? Because that's probably not the sole reason, right?
No, that's not the sole reason. I also wanted to study somewhere in Europe, right? The first choice would have been UK, obviously because of the language and because of it has its connection with India, let's say.
I was going to bring this up, but I was like, oh no, this is probably not the right place to bring this up.
Yeah, so that was the first choice. But then I started looking at the universities, and the good ones were like really, really expensive, right? So if you want to go
Which ones did you look at?
So I mean, I didn't have a lot of idea. So I started looking at Oxford and, LSE and all of those big names. And although I didn't even know if I would get in, because you also need to have certain grades and to get into those universities, right? But I was quite naive. So I started looking into that. And then the first thing I looked into was how much these universities were going to cost, right? So let me tell you, because my intention was to actually go there and study. And I know a lot of people from my state in India, Punjab, they just want to go to, let's say, the UK or to Australia, and they will say, okay, I'm going to study over there. They will just go there. They will work a lot, not concentrate on their studies. And that's sort of a door opener for them to say, okay, I'm going to study there. That's why I'm going there. But actually they won't be studying. For me, I actually wanted to study. So I was thinking, okay, if I'm paying like 50,000, 15,000, 20,000 per year, and then I'm focusing all the time on my studies, I don't have time to make any money at all. How am I going to afford this, right? So this was the first point. And then secondly, my sister lived here in Germany, and she asked me, "Oh, why don't you come to Germany?" And I had no idea about how the education system worked over here. I was like, "Okay, why not?" And then I started researching, and then I saw, "Oh, universities don't cost anything." Of course, again, as we were talking, the German engineering is it's known everywhere in the world, right? So even in India, we always had this impression that German products are like one of the best products in the world. So I was thinking, okay, the universities must be good as well. Then I read up, and then I saw, okay, if I want to do this degree, I need to know German. I need to reach certain level of German proficiency before I can start the degree. And I thought, okay, but I can do it, And to be honest, again, this was a bit naive from my side as well, because I didn't really think it through properly. Right. So if I had given it a proper thought, I
What do you
would have
mean?
thought, okay.
Oh, so yeah, sorry. Explain. Yeah.
So I mean, usually if you are a person who thinks everything through, you would say, okay, how difficult is it going for me to learn the language, right? After I learned the language, would I get into the school or not? Because this wasn't sure either. I just had, I just did some internet research. I saw, okay, University of Hamburg, this is the course I want to do. But I did not know at that point of time if I would get in at all, you know.
Yeah.
And the third thing I did not think about was, okay, even if I get in, how am I going to support myself financially? Okay, I won't be paying much tuition fees, but I will still have to pay for my expenses and everything. Hamburg, it's not that expensive when it compare it to London or to Paris or other big cities or to New York, but it's still an expensive city,
Oh yeah, within
right?
Germany, it's one of the bigger one. Obviously, it's a big city and it's expensive. It's probably not like on Munich level yet, but it's definitely on the rising edge of it. So yeah. I mean, you need a place to live and you need food, right?
Exactly. So, but the good thing was I had a lot of family support. I had my sister who said, "Okay, don't worry about these things." And then the other thing was I did not think a lot. I just did it, and but everything worked out well. I think I was very lucky that everything worked out.
Well,
Yeah.
it's luck and it's also the personal commitment and effort you put in, right? So, and I think sometimes not thinking everything through makes it a lot of sense and it helps you unconsciously. It helps you not to get too overwhelmed with things. I think this is actually a lot of people sometimes don't do stuff because they think about all the things that could go wrong. And yes, obviously there could have been stuff going wrong at any of these given things, but usually there's a way to solve these.
Yeah.
And unless you're not entirely, unless what you said, there's some people not coming here to study and then doing something else, like obviously those might be different situations, but if you're committed to doing this, I think everyone at least deserves the chance, obviously, but also has a chance of doing this because there are degrees for everyone, I think. And
Yeah.
maybe if you don't get your first choice, think about, doing your second choice. Even if it's not exactly what you want, there's always a chance to later on pick different courses, do another bachelor's, do a master's degree. I think there's so much, variability in there that
Yeah.
people should be encouraged to do
Yeah.
that.
There's a lot of flexibility when it comes to German universities. And I think, again, the fact that you do not pay tuition, it gives you more flexibility. Like you don't have to worry about the number of years you're going to take to complete a degree, right?
Well, I
So
think at some degrees there's a maximum. So
exactly, there's a maximum, but the maximum is like 5, 6 years or whatever. So there's like, I remember when I was doing my bachelor's, it was like you had to do for each exam you had 3 chances, but you did not have to take all these 3 chances in, like, let's say 1.5 years or something. You could say, okay, I'm going to take this exam at the end of my degree. So, but if you
Oh.
fail 3 times, then you would be thrown out of the university.
Yeah,
Yes.
your entire degree would be kind of invalid, or at least that course, you would be thrown out of that course. Yeah.
Like you can say, I'm only going to say study part-time, which for foreign students does not apply, because if you are going to come here to study, your sole purpose of being in this country is to study. So they
Also
won't.
based on visa and stuff like that, right? Like
Exactly.
it's on that basis that you are studying here. Yeah.
Exactly. So university won't have any problems with that, but the visa office will have problem with
Yeah.
that, because your purpose is to study over here in this country. But for like German students, they can also do part-time studies, which will so they will only have to do half the credits per semester, and then they can increase their time from 3 years to 6 years or whatever. I've seen a lot of people doing this. And before that, actually, when there was diploma system,
Yeah.
bachelor's and master's system is something relatively new in Germany. Before that, we had like a good old proper German diploma, which was like 5 years of
4.
degrees.
I think it was 4
4?
years. Yeah, I think it was 4
Okay.
years. And it was basically, yeah. I don't know, like I think bachelor's and master's degree open up a lot more chances, to be honest. I think a lot of people, because a diploma wasn't for everyone, right? It wasn't like the thing everybody wanted. If you were going into something which is a highly research-based field where you need a lot of prior knowledge, stuff like that, I think it makes sense, right? I think it makes sense to maybe do a master's in that degree, whatever. But a lot of things you want to be taught the essentials, and then you learn a lot of stuff that's just through experience, through your job. And I'm interested, you obviously went through a different experience than I did. Also, you did your master's at the University of Hamburg, right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, okay.
My
So how relevant were the things you learned going on in your, like, onwards in your life after that? Like, how relevant was the content?
Do you mean for work later?
Well, yes, for work, for your job life.
To be really honest, not that relevant. I mean, what I studied in bachelor's could have been enough for for working later, or even I don't. So we were talking about Musk, and Musk also said that you don't have to go to university if you want to work for Tesla, right?
Yeah.
So,
and some other big companies do the same thing. They're like, yeah,
exactly. But I think for me, because I did not really know what I wanted to do later in life, and I did not have that like $1 million idea, like Mark Zuckerberg had, or one of those other great inventors had. Whenever people talk about universities, why universities are not important, people take their examples, like they talk about Mark Zuckerberg and say, or Larry or Sergey from Google, oh, they did not complete their degrees. But what they forget is these people had great ideas, right? And they implemented those ideas as well. And
but okay, I gotta disagree with you here.
Okay.
At that time, those people didn't know that these were great ideas. The people they were passionate about something, and they thought it was the right thing at the time. And they actually poured a lot of work. Like Elon went, I think, to Stanford for like 1 day and then dropped out. And I think he started with PayPal then? I'm not entirely sure. No, it wasn't PayPal at the time. It was like X.com or something, whatever. But it's I think those people were just driven by something else. And I don't think at that time they were like, oh yeah, this is, or maybe they were like, this is $1 million idea. And obviously looking back now, you're like, oh, it was $1 billion idea. Great.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that at that time a lot of people would have said, I actually think a lot of people would have said this isn't not even a penny idea.
Okay, so when I say great idea, I don't really mean that you have to know that you're going to make billions out of this idea, but you have to be really, really passionate about things. And you have to believe in it. You have to say, you have to think that this is going to work. This is something that people are going to love, right? People are going to use. I think and I did not have that kind of idea.
Yeah, and I think not a lot of people do, to be completely fair. But I think it's more about you're passionate about something, and you want to do this. And I think I listen to a lot of podcasts these days, and one of them is Tuxedo Time from like Becky and Chris. They're like a YouTube, they're a YouTube couple, and they do like home renovations and video blogs, stuff like that. I mean, it's like completely off topic here, but they said, the passion part, basically, what that's so important, like doing things you love. Right. And I think that's also what comes back to how you shape your life. Right. It's if you have something that you're passionate about, and if you only think about that, let's say you're in class, right, in university or wherever, you're sitting there and you're in like a geometry. I don't know if there's still geometry in college, whatever, like a stochastics class or something, right? And you're sitting there, and all you can think about is building your cool idea that you had, like whatever, your Facebook, something, right? If that's like all you can think about, maybe either what you have chosen to study isn't right for you because it's not engaging you enough, or you should really consider investing time into what you believe in, like what you think you're passionate about. The one thing I think is you should, if you decide on something, don't give up so easily. Like put in some effort. And I don't know who said this, but give yourself a runway. let's say, for example, you want to start your own company or whatever, and you don't want to go to university, or you want to drop out of university. Tell yourself, for example, let's say you want to build a photography business, right? Tell yourself, okay, I'm going to give myself 1 year, right? 12 months. And if by the end of that, set yourself a goal, like if by the end of that I make like at least, not even like a huge amount, maybe like 500 euros a month, right?
Yeah.
If I can make this by the end of 12 months, I will continue on this path. And if not, hey, I gave it my all, like I gave it my best try, right? And then there's no shame in saying, well, it didn't work out, like, right? This is something where,
And again, I think that's what great about the university system over here is, so even when you start your degree and you see, okay, I don't want to do this, I want to, do something else, I want to follow my passion, you can always leave your degree, right? And you haven't lost anything other than your time, but in that time you gained experience.
Yes. And you don't leave a school or university with a bank account full of debt. Right? Like
exactly.
In the US, a lot of people, it's normal that you leave if your parents can't provide for that. I know some people where the parents save up as soon as, their child is born. They're like, well, I got to start saving up for university for them, right? For college. And then they are able to provide their kids with the college experience. But honestly, given the prices in the US, that is not something that everyone can do. By the way, not in Germany also, right? We have BAföG, which is basically a financial aid that is provided to students. However, there's a certain bar that your parents income-wise can't be above that bar, otherwise you're not eligible for it. So in Germany, it's even, which is kind of funny. In Germany, let's say you're not on the best terms with your parents, but you still want to attend university. Let's say you live in, I don't know, you grew up in Munich and then you want to go to a university in Hamburg. Obviously, you need an apartment and you need to do something. But let's say your parents earn too much money, so you can't apply for BAföG, which is something that happens. Obviously, you can actually, and let's say your parents are like, no, you're not going there. This is stupid. Go to a school here in Munich so we don't have to pay for rent or something. You can actually sue your parents for, I think it's like 600 or 700 euros a month.
It used to be 630 or something when I was studying here.
Yeah, okay, and it obviously increased due to inflation and stuff like that. I think when I started, it was like 720 maybe, something like that. But you could sue your parents. So, in the sense of, obviously, they want to have everyone be able to attend university, and they want to even give out credits to live and study and stuff like that. But on the other hand, they're not just given out to everyone. They are looking at your heritage, at your family, and be like, well, obviously it's not the best idea, or I don't think your family will greatly benefit from having a lawsuit of, you going to university and paying for that. That's maybe a different problem. But I think it's still good that in general it's free, but you still have to, you still have an option, even if if your parents cannot provide you with this level. BAföG is something you have to pay back, but at least you will have an opportunity to do that. And even then, you're not going to end your like university or your college experience with hundreds of thousands of euros in debt. You'll be in debt, but if you don't live over your whatever, you have to pay it back, but the first thing is there's no interest on it. So you will pay the amount you will get back, and you don't have to start paying it back immediately after you finish your degree. They see what kind of job do you have, how much money are you making. You only pay it back when you're making certain amount of money. And then I heard from a friend, I'm not really sure about this, but he's brilliant and he got the best grades, and he only had to pay like the half back. He didn't have to pay whole amount back. Yeah, there's like certain rules. I mean, like everything, right? Not even in language, but also for paying back these things. There's everything is written down in like a contract, and so you can. Since I was never in that position, neither like for BAföG, and because I was obviously like even making some money while in university, I never really looked into this. But I'm sure like there are so many ways that this can be done differently. But in general, it's not like you just get free money, which I think is also good, because you should learn to value also what you're getting, like in university, right? I don't think people should just, especially because you have to pay rent in an apartment and stuff. I don't think people should just be like, oh, it's fun to be in university and I'm just going to get money from my government for free. I don't think that's the right way to do it. I think people should value this and be like, okay, either my parents would probably tell me like, all right, this is like your 5th year in university. Maybe you can start like finishing your degree or something. Or you have your own bank account telling you, well, you're accruing just a little bit more debt than you maybe want to. So maybe it's time to start, wrapping things up or something like that.
I agree. To any potential foreign students listening, BAföG is not meant to be for foreign students.
Yep.
It's just for German, because it's not given by universities. It's something given to you by the government. So obviously they want to support their German local students. There are other ways. There are some scholarships, etc., for foreign students as well, but not that easy to get. And anyways, I always worked part-time when I was studying. That was the reason it took me 4 years to finish my bachelor's, and not 3.
We should say regular time is 3. Yeah,
3
years.
Exactly.
But a lot of people are taking some people just go abroad for a semester and then they just do an extra semester because they,
Exactly. And I did 6 months internship in between as well, which then resulted in me taking a bit longer to finish my studies. But as I was saying, so I always used to work. I used to make good money working part-time. Companies pay you well if you can do work for them, which is important,
Yeah, so you work like a working student, basically, right? There's actually a term, it's called Werkstudent in German. Yeah. And you get like a decent contract, and with limited hours, obviously, because you still have to study. But it's and a lot of people actually get their first job also through stuff like that, because you have a network of people, right? You worked for a company, you know how the company is running. A lot of the times it's like, oh, you're done with university. Well, actually, you can just continue what you're doing, but you'll get paid full now, right?
Yeah, exactly. I actually had an offer in the company I was working for as well, but obviously I didn't choose it. But I could have. It was a great company as well. But anyways, I wanted to go into consulting, so I did not choose it. But I think this is a great option. And I learned so much. I think that was the most important thing for me. I learned so much. People knew that I was a student, so they were not expecting me to know everything, so they would help me. And then they knew that I was only working 2 days a week or maybe 2.5. They considered that as well. So I had a really positive experience over there.
This is so great to hear. I know that this is some people also struggle with stuff like this because they think they owe the company more time than they actually do. Let's say your contract is for 20 hours. I've talked to people who are like, oh no, but I still have to finish this and these slides for this meeting and stuff. Like, if you're in that position, don't kill yourself over this. Let me tell you from experience, you are getting paid so little in comparison to regular people and some regular employees, right? Yeah. And sometimes those regular employees will do a worse job than you at, preparing a meeting or doing a PowerPoint presentation or whatever, So if you are at your hour limit, even though it's obviously law in Germany as well, you can't work too much, but obviously nobody's gonna stop you if you decide to put in more time. And sometimes it's worth putting in more time, but in general, I would say enjoy some of your free time that you still have left over. Make sure you also put enough effort in your studies, and take away positive things from work, like build your network, stuff like that, obviously. But don't kill yourself over finishing things like this exact day. And don't, if you tell someone, and this is what I personally learned, and obviously I'm not super old yet, so this is something that I had to learn also in the start of my career. And luckily it was pretty quickly. I didn't have to have a major meltdown to learn this. People will sometimes respect you. I've never been respected less for saying no to something, first of all. And sometimes I've been respected more for actually prioritizing the work and saying, it's I don't know, 6 p.m., 5 p.m., whenever you stop working, whenever your hours are full, whatever. And you just say, you know what? I'm just going to do stuff tomorrow. If something comes in, and I've had this, I'm like, my boss, oh, we need this really fast. But usually it turns out they don't need this really fast. They want you to do it fast. Sure, everybody wants things always to be done immediately, but most of the times it's not really something where you have to go crazy. And a lot of people will then learn that they can't just tell you to do stuff and you're like, oh yes, without asking any questions, with always saying yes. I think this is also important.
Yeah, going a bit off track now, but
totally.
I was one of those people who had difficulty in saying no. Maybe because of, there are cultural differences as well, but this is something I had to learn here in Germany. How to say no. I'm still not very good at it, but now at least I ask people to give me some time to think about it, and then I will tell them either yes or no if I'm going to do that or not. But it doesn't come naturally to me. But I absolutely agree with you. You have to learn this. Otherwise, you're going to give yourself a lot of stress. Secondly, you might not be able to do as good a job as you would have done otherwise. So do yourself a favor, as I'm trying to do now. Think about things and then say yes. And also don't be afraid of saying no.
Yeah.
Right.
And also don't be discouraged if you find yourself to be one of these people saying yes to everything. It takes time. It's a learning process like everything. But there are cool videos on YouTube. There's mentoring help that can get you through this. And honestly, ask people. Like, especially if you're in a situation where you're at a university or when you're at a company, usually there's a couple of people you like, hopefully at least, and talk to these people. I think they will help you find your way and doing this. But coming back to the universities, I think it's great that the education paths are so cheaply, and inexpensive for people, and that it's not also frowned upon if you visit because most of them are public schools, right? Like if you go to like public schools, sorry, I'm like kind of using them interchangeably. But it's like, oh, you went to this school, whatever. Like you went to this university, oh, cool. And actually the minority of people I know went to a private school. I know a couple that went to like a private, whatever, like business school or something. But I want to say, like, I don't think their experience was majorly more beneficial than, for example, mine or like other people's.
Yeah. So I did not go to private school. I don't know much about it. But the thing is, if you look at the rankings every year of the universities, like LMU in Munich or Technical University Munich are always at the top, right? And these are public schools. And then you have University of Heidelberg. That's a public school as well.
We should say for certain degrees, right? They're not like at the top of the field for everything, but yes.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But those are still, that shows you that these are good universities, right? And I think the only difference that might be there to the private schools is that you might not get that much of, attention from your professors or from the tutors, because I mean there were classes where there were 250 people sitting in the lecture, right?
Yeah.
So obviously, and even if a professor had 3 assistants, they would never be able to tend to everyone, right?
Sure.
How was this in the private school you went to, Alex?
Actually, it wasn't a private school.
It wasn't.
No,
Okay,
I mean,
sorry.
it's the Berlin School of Economics and Law. You can look it up. It's the program I was in. Obviously, was something where since it was really specialized, and you can't just go to university for 3 months and then do nothing for 3 months. So it was something where you couldn't just go in. You need to go in through another organization. So in that sense, yes, it was kind of private, but it wasn't like the entire school itself also had a non-dual study part. So there are some schools, for example, the DHBW, like the Duale Hochschule Baden-Württemberg. That one is actually one, I think they're exclusively doing this dual study program. So the entire university is like, the entire DHBW is like set up for doing solely this, but the Berlin School of Economics and Law actually isn't. So they had dual study courses and they had non-dual study courses. So it wasn't I would be really mistaken, but I don't think it was a private one.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, but in that school though, it was it was a little different, as I said, because our course was basically like a school class in high school. Like we were, I don't know, like 20 something people or something. So we weren't that many people, right? So we had this really sometimes intimate relationship with our professors, and not in a sexual sense at all, but just in a, no, don't want to say anything wrong.
Hopefully.
No, nope, didn't happen, or at least not that I knew of. No, but jokes aside, it was just more of a personal relationship. So you could talk to those professors after lecture, you could ask them for advice, you could ask them for help. And the thing that I really, really appreciated, most, if not all, but most of them were people who taught after they worked in their field of expertise.
Yeah.
Right? So our main professor, shout out to him. He was just insanely great. He was really stringent. Like he was, at that time at least, would always show up in a suit, and then like it was. Yeah. But it was great. Like you'd have that relationship, but this relationship could actually also be of negative impact, not only because in some cases you might like more anonymity, but I think also because it's harder on the actual professors or teachers, because this is not really hard to say, but so in my opinion, right, this is pure personal opinion, our class was pretty shitty at times, like pretty awful. If I were a professor, I would have had a difficult time sometimes with us, because obviously you're talking to students who are right out of high school. Some of them might think partying is what life's core value is, right? And a lot of them, I'm going to be quite honest, didn't know how to pay respect in the way that should have been done, right? Because a lot of those professors, as I said, were people who basically not gave up their job, but who basically said, look, I maybe made enough money, because obviously a professor, they could make way more money working in like big companies, right? Like
of course.
Yeah. So they went, some of them went back. One of them said actually like, hey, I really love reading books and I really like teaching people. So that's why I decided to quit my main job, and I can only do what I love. So I think people should, pay respect to those people by not, for example, talking in class, eating excessively in class, drinking excessively in class, right? It's all like, if you want to take a sip of water, obviously, like there's nothing wrong with that. And if you want to eat something really quick because you're starving, or maybe you're a diabetes patient and you need something, right? Sure. Like, but it's always the level of, am I doing this really quick, or am I like excessively talking to the point of where it's not only annoying the teacher or the professor, but also other students? And honestly, there were quite a lot of these instances, and some some professors, they had a really hard time with that. Like and I think it was terrible. Like honestly, I think some of this was, those people were some great people in private, but in school sometimes I honestly hated them. I was like, you idiots, you whatever, way worse words. Why are you doing this? Like those people are taking their time to teach you something. If you don't want to be here, frickin' quit. Like nobody forces you to be here.
Yeah. Now imagine how this would be in the normal degrees, where you have 250 people sitting in a class, because even if 10% of them are not motivated, how they are going to behave and how difficult it would be for the professor. This was actually a culture shock for me, Alex, let me tell you, when I came here. So my very first day of the pre-university, so I had to do pre-university before university. Mm-hmm. That's just a prep course for the university, and for foreign students when you want to do your bachelor's here. So teacher entered in the class, and I was used to, from India, to stand up and then say hi to the teacher. And I did that, and everyone started laughing at me. I was like, what the hell is happening? And it was so funny, man. Right. But then this, at the university, that people did not have respect for their professors. This was something that bothered me a lot as well.
Yeah.
I have to be very honest. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think the setting, in a setting where you were with like 250 people, I don't want to say like professors know what they sign up for, but they kind of do, right? So I hope, at least to everyone who's listening to this, who's in the teaching profession at university, stuff like that, even in classes, I sometimes just hope that, professors who are signing up for the more broader audiences and bigger classes, hopefully they're like, okay, I know that not everyone's going to pay attention. And because it's such a huge amount of people, I think it's sometimes easier to justify. I think it's the smaller the group gets, the harder it is because, you stand out more. It's more singling down on individual people. And you're like, well, yeah, I don't know. But I completely agree. And honestly, this is one thing where I actually think that other countries and other cultures, that's where we can learn from them. Because I don't think there's any positivity gained in not paying attention and being respectful to your teacher. Because a lot of times in Germany, you don't even have to be in class if you don't want to, right? I think, is it like this?
You don't have to be in the lectures, but you do have to be in the practical courses.
Okay, that's fine. So in my case, it was a little different because we were obviously, paid by a company to also attend the school. So it was a little different, but obviously we were in there because we're selected. So also different. But yeah, so like my honest word is here, if you don't want to be there or if you want to take your calls or want to chat to people, then frickin' do this, but outside of frickin' class and just don't go there. Like leave the frickin' room. I don't give a yeah. One really last thing. I know we're on the hour here, I think, but one last thing that's just really interesting, I think, is the campus life, right? Like in a lot of, I don't know how it is in India, but in the US at least, people have dormitories on campus, like they're dorms, like they live there, they study there. It's like a whole life, an ecosystem. In Germany, that's usually not the case. There is student housing. Like there are sometimes entire apartment blocks where you can get affordable, like really affordable apartments and housing, stuff like that. But it's not common that you live like on campus. And sometimes your campus might not even be like a real campus. Sometimes it's just one house. Sometimes it's like a legit campus setup where you have different, like a mensa where you can eat and different buildings. But sometimes it's kind of also a campus might be split up over town. I mean, that's the same kind as in the US, but it's, again, usually not something where your entire life is taking place on campus, right? It's usually you have an apartment, and a lot of people don't live in like student housing. They just have a WG where they share an apartment with other people.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So the first thing about campus, my campus was like that because it was like I was studying business informatics. So business campus is different than the informatics. And then there was another campus for just for mathematics, and we had to go all through town, like sometimes travel like 15 kilometers a day just to get to different classes. And then the housing thing, I used to live in a student housing thing, and it was really, really affordable. It was like, I think 250 euros or something per month, and really nice room, like 6 or 7 rooms on one floor. And then you would share the kitchen with all these people. It was like a great experience.
Wow, that is great to hear, because I've been in one, but I've never like lived in one, because I was fortunate enough to have like apartments wherever I basically went, like not like own apartments or anything, but I just rented, stuff out when I went like in different cities for like my practical work time during my study time, stuff like that. But I mean, cool. Interesting. Really interesting topic. Yeah.
On that note, it was really interesting talking to you, Alex, about this, and I hope our listeners enjoyed as well.
German Masala is available on all major podcasting platforms, including but not limited to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and we're also on YouTube. It's audio only, and we have like a little picture there, but if you want to sign up and subscribe, please do so. Subscribing on all these platforms is usually completely free, including YouTube. It just helps you to have the episodes download directly to you in case you sometimes forget to do that. I was on a long drive actually over this weekend, and it's easy if you have this downloaded because the connection of LTE and, it's just spotty in Germany. Anyway, so make sure to comment, like, and subscribe if you're, for example, on YouTube or also on other major podcasting platforms. This would help us a lot. German Masala is produced under the Alex Universe brand. Alex Universe is currently an electric car YouTube channel held in German, hosted by me, Alex. and German Masala hosted by Harbier and myself.